Time now for part 3 of the Oilers TV mock draft. This is where we take a look at the Vegas Golden Knights, the new team to the NHL, and the expansion draft coming up on Wednesday. It's going to be a pretty exciting day down in Vegas. So a lot of hubbub about who would be protected, who wouldn't be protected. Sunday morning, we finally saw the list. Guys, we took a crack each at picking the Vegas Golden Knights. And there's a lot of variables here, so we just went with the standard rules. Do you guys have anything to say before I get into the rules of this?
I know I'm not a candidate to be a GM anytime soon after looking at this team, but we'll give it our best shot.
You have anything to say to that?
Based on our conversations over the course of the last 7 years together on the road, I can verify that you are not a candidate to be a general manager, but you're stuck next to a guy who thinks he can be. So that tells you everything.
That's the difference. I know I can.
Right.
I'm sitting next to someone who thinks he can.
This is what it's like every day on the media bus and shuttles. Yes. All right, I'm going to go through the rules for the expansion draft real quick before we take a look at our rosters. So that teams had options in terms of how many guys they could keep. It could go 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, 1 goalie, or 8 skaters, 1 goalie. First and second year players are exempt. Players missing 60 consecutive games are exempt. Minimum 1 forward, 2 defense, 1 goalie. Forward defense requirements, 40 games played in the last season or 70 in the past 2. Goalie requirements, under contract for 2017-18 or an RFA. So we select 30 players, minimum 14 forwards, 90, 3 goalies plus 4 players. 20 of 30 players must be under contract for 2017-18. Select 1 player from each team. Vegas cannot buy out selected players until summer 2018. Must use 60 to 100% of the 2017-18 salary cap. And, of course, Vegas Golden Knights are revealed June 21st at the NHL Awards. Okay, so we'll go with my team. Some of the highlights here. When I saw that Eric Stahl was left exposed, I know there's circumstances involved, but I thought he would be a good veteran piece to building a team. I know they want to develop their team through the draft, and they talk about not necessarily. I mean, you talk
He also
about
had a good year last year.
He had a good year. He had a bounce back year, but it's kind of funny because you said that Vegas needs to make a good impression in their first year, but then we're hearing that they want to build the proper way, and that's through the draft. And that, of course, takes time, as we've witnessed here in Edmonton. So I just thought Eric Stahl would be a good fit. James Neal, another strong, solid veteran who had a pretty strong season. Mikhail Grigorenko, Devontae Smith-Pelly, who's bounced around a little bit. Is he ever going to find a true home and become a bona fide NHL player? On the back end, Toby Enstrom out of Winnipeg, Zach Bogosian, Sami Vatanen. A lot of talk. We saw Vatanen in the playoffs. And then the goalies, of course, Marc-Andre Fleury. I went Peter Mrazek and Philip Grubauer. Bob, your Golden Knights.
All right. I think that guys like James Neal and Jonathan Marchessault are going to be players that either get flipped very quickly. I could see Chicago, as an example, giving up a significant piece to get a Marchessault type player at $750,000. So for me, that would be Vegas's pick from Florida. Neal, maybe during the course of the season, they might be able to get a pretty big pick. I put David Perron in the same category. Cody Aiken was drafted by George McPhee when he was the general manager of the Washington Capitals. William Carrier, kind of an underrated guy, slider that I think is going to has a chance for some upside. Maybe put Kirby Reichel in the same category from Buffalo and Toronto, respectively. I have got Josh Bailey on the list from the Islanders because we believe that certain players have been protected. I believe that those 2 players are Brock Nelson and Ryan Strome. Defensively, Vatanen and Dumba are an automatic. There are people that have suggested that they've made a deal.
Explain what you mean by protected with respect to Ryan Strome, because he is on the
He's exposed.
List. Yes.
So what we believe has happened is the New York Islanders have likely offered up their number 1 pick, and that pick was to protect a couple of forwards because they wanted to protect the 5 defensemen. And I believe those 2 forwards were Brock Nelson as well as Ryan Strome. And conversely, I think something similar has happened with Anaheim on defense, where I believe Josh Manson, even though he was exposed, has been protected via trade that the Ducks have made because they didn't have a number 1, and so that means that Sami Vatanen will end up there. I'm going to disagree with you on Eric Stahl altogether because I believe that Matt Dumba could be a guy that would brings a significant return, at least a first-round draft choice, and I think that Vegas is in the acquisition of a first-round draft choice mode, and this is where my team differs from Jack's. Jack's is more money, win more right now. Mine is more for the future, and there's one more little thing I want to mention here. It's about Brandon Davidson. Brandon Davidson is represented by David Kay. Okay, David Kay is the father of Michael Kay, who represents Spencer Fu. Spencer Fu is being seriously courted by Vegas. The Vegas Golden Knights have also signed Reed Duke. Ironically enough, also signed by also represented by David Kay. The Kays only have 6 or 7 players that are of that ilk. If you're currying favor with the agency, one way to do it is to bring in Brandon Davidson as well out of Montreal. And, oh, by the way, we didn't mention the fact Griffin Reinhardt, I do believe, is going to be the player that the Oilers lose in expansion.
I went with Jujhar Khaira.
Yeah, and I went with Griffin Reinhardt as well. When you look at my team, I tried to go with a bit of a mix, of players that can help the Golden Knights immediately, and then some guys that I think are kind of on the way up. That's why I went Colton Sissons instead of a James Neal, who might flounder a little bit on a team that would be challenged to score goals theoretically in terms of the Vegas Golden Knights, because if you're able to focus on James Neal, sometimes he goes away. When you look defensively, as Bob just kind of mentioned under his breath there, Karl Alzner and Zach Bogosian are kind of my stalwarts to, kind of stem the tide of offensive chances that are bound to come their way. You look for a guy like Matt Calvert to maybe take the next step forward in his career. Maybe some surprises are there. Leadership up front, I'm going with Troy Brouwer, a guy that can, kind of meld a locker room of young players. He just strikes me as that type of guy that some younger players, some players that they haven't even drafted yet.
Tough year in Calgary.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not taking Troy Brouwer for anything other than that locker room presence. If he gives you 15, 20 goals, well, that's a bonus. He's certainly capable of doing it. Matt Dumba, I was kind of the Bob mindset that you could parlay that into some extra picks. I mean, George McPhee has talked about maybe winding up with 15 or so picks. And then obviously when you're talking about an expansion team, you want to be extremely strong in net. I kind of doubled down on goalies a little bit. I drafted 4, thinking that Fleury with Neuver and Condon kind of battling it out for the number 2 hole. Michael Leighton to give you a solid presence in the minors. That's kind of a long-term view in terms of the goaltending.
Michael Leighton, what would that be, his 10th franchise?
Yeah, well, he's well-traveled, but he's a pro, and he can teach the American leaguers that are going to be as part of the Vegas organization. He can teach them to be pros, and that's kind of what I was thinking there.
What's it going to be like when we see Vegas for the first time? I mean, it's going to be hard to find out what this team will be before the draft. But
I think the fact that you just take a look at these teams and how different Jack's team is and the money that he's got, and you've taken some swings on some $4 million players and bypassed, to me, a guy in James Neal who can get you back a high-end pick. I think Jack thinks they're going to look to be more competitive than maybe I think they're going to be. Like I think they probably realize they got to build through the draft, get as many picks as possible. That means flipping guys like a Marcia Show, potentially like a Neal. Well, we agree on Dumba, but I don't think they'll have the same range of $4 million forwards slotted in that lineup. And I think
part of it is I've been in that Las Vegas market. I've been in there for 10 years. I just feel like you better do something your first year.
Especially with the NFL coming in a couple of years, right?
I mean, there's just too much going on in Las Vegas. Strong first impression. You're right. I hedged my bets a little bit with some of the younger guys. That's why I went with a Sissons instead of a James Neal, because maybe that's a young player that could be a Vegas Golden Knight for 5 or 6 years and develop into a 25-goal scorer.
I'll throw one more thing at you. We're not necessarily, maybe financially, looking at the cap range of the 2 teams that we've got, but there is the wild card in this is Nolan Patrick, because if they can build through, if they can turn that into the number 1 pick of the draft, and they have that guy in their draft, then that is their star that they're kind of building their young star.
And if you look at see how much money comes off my team after the first year, like that first year is just.
What do you think?
It's important to get to 30 wins.
What's Alzner going to sign for?
Well,
he's going to get 5 minimum if he's going to go there.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, I'm looking at it in terms of you need a good first impression, while at the same time in years 2 or 3 start.
In fairness, they'd have 2 stars if they went and got Patrick, because Marc-Andre Fleury's a star in goal, and they would have that.
Absolutely, and they're going to need him.
Any way you look at it, there's a ton of interesting debate when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll find out at the expansion draft on Wednesday night during the NHL Awards. That concludes the Oilers TV mock draft.